And I see Chair Motz. Chair Motz, have you joined us?
Yes, I have. Hello, everybody.
Hello. We did not expect to see you today.
I am remote on a college bus tour with my team, and I'm so grateful to you for leading the meeting today. So I will be listening in.
Excellent. So if I step it online, just send me a note, and I will correct myself. So I'm going to call the meeting to order. Good morning, everyone, commissioners and attendees and MPEC staff. You will see two things are different today. One, we are not in our normal boardroom because we have actually some AV issues and also some AC issues in the building. So actually, we've made this meeting virtual. So apologies for last minute notice, but we just want to make sure that folks could attend and take part in full comfort. I think secondly, you'll notice that I am not our wonderful Chair Motz. She, as you heard, is doing she's taking care of the most important responsibilities, which are for family. So I'll be stepping in to chair this meeting today. So if I don't do a good job, don't worry, she'll be back next month. As we'll go to chairs and secretary's remarks, and I'll just make some quick remarks, and then I'll throw it to Secretary Rai. Just two things, or really three things. One, you'll hear more about the financial aid and the FAFSA update here in the state of Maryland. This is a rolling affair across the country. Maryland is doing its utmost, and I really want to just give thanks to all the folks who work in Aldo Set's office, Jeff Newman's office, as well as folks across the state, known and unknown, who are working to help trying to make sure that we have young people who actually can get into higher ed with the support that they need and deserve. So you'll hear more about that, but that is a continuing body of work, and I would not assume it ends because we're in the summer now. Secondly, this past a week ago, we had our first meeting of the Education Policy Committee in a fairly long time, and I really want to thank the commissioners who stepped forward to serve: Commissioner Dukes, Commissioner Tabor-Stalen, Commissioner Serrano, Commissioner Thompson. I think that's all four of them, to really begin a bunch of course, reactive work that'll be around education policy and academic affairs, but really to step forward on the most important proactive work that we have, which is the beginning to draft the next state higher education plan. So that was a great meeting, beginning dialogue, and you will hear more from us in the future. The last piece is, I had a last piece, and I'll come back to it before the end, but let me throw it to Secretary Rai to give his remarks.
Thank you, Commissioner Raghu, and thank you all commissioners and everyone who has joined our meeting today. I want to thank Commissioner Raghu for chairing today's meeting while Chair Motz is on a very important assignment today, traveling, but her commitment is very clear. She has still joined from a bus tour, I guess, and she's in a bus. I can see that, right? Thank you, Chair Motz, as well. I also want to mention today is a very special day because our student commissioner, Sierra Robinson, today is her last day as commissioner. And, student commissioners come for a year. And I want to thank her for all her commitment, input, and guidance. Her input has been extremely valuable to us, and we wish her all success in future. I know she's going to be a tremendous leader in higher education, and we have benefited from her, and we look forward to hearing from her. I know we'll hear great things from her. Commissioner Robinson, you want to say a few things?
Commissioner Robinson, while she's bringing it out.
Yeah, while she's bringing up. We have a very, very busy and literally hot summer at Maryland Higher Education Commission. Our air conditioning is not working. All efforts are being made, but we are busy. Very thankful to all my colleagues and staff here doing tremendous work, whether it's more Miller plan or coming up with completion goals for 2030. You will hear about FAFSA outreach efforts. We have some good news in that arena. And also you will hear one of the very important work that we are undertaking, implementation of House Bill 1244. This is about academic program approval process. So again, thank you again to our Commissioner Raghu, and we're looking forward to a meeting today. Thank you.
Excellent. And I now remember the last thing I was going to say, which is today we are having a site visit here at MHEC as part of this non-credit credential consortium that we are part of with a number of states and the State Higher Education Executive Organization. And so this is important work about, again, how do we have the full spectrum of credentials and skilling that takes place through higher ed, and how do we not just optimize what we have, but kind of push it forward to the future again to fit our economic needs, our social needs, so on and so forth. So you'll hear more about that after our next visit, because the site visit will be almost directly after this meeting. With that, as we heard previously, there are no public comments for today's meeting, and really would want to move next into the approval of the February and the March minutes. So unless there are questions, I'd be happy to entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved for both February and March 2024 minutes.
Looking for a second.
Second.
All right. Dr. Ings, I've actually not done this before virtually. In terms of doing votes, can we simply do that verbally, or do we need folks to put something in the chat?
No, but you can just also ask for any opposition or abstentions.
Great.
So yes, they can raise their hands or they can just say aye.
Great. All in
Aye.
favor, say aye.
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 All opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? All right. With that, I see that the minutes have been approved and passed. Thank you all so much. Next, I'm going to turn it to Dr. Dow, and Dr. Dow is going to walk us through the annual reports of our Student Advisory Council and our Faculty Advisory Council. And Dr. Dow, one just favor that I'll ask, if you could give 20 seconds of just context for folks who may be watching who may not be familiar with these two groups, of what they are, what their purpose is, just to set context before we dive into the actual documents.
Absolutely. So thank you, Vice Chair Agu and Commissioners. Good morning. By law, there are several advisory councils that are intended to advise the Commission on a variety of topics. You are going to hear from two of those advisory councils today, the Student Advisory Council and the Faculty Advisory Council. These two advisory councils meet regularly throughout the academic year, usually once per month, and they come up with an agenda and a schedule for the year to talk about relevant issues that they think are important statewide. And so that is what you see in the report, is a reflection of those discussions and potential recommendations for the Commission, for you as commissioners to consider, as well as Secretary Rye and the agency to consider for implementation. We have with us today our two chairs for each of the councils. So I'd like to give time and space for our Student Advisory Council Chair, Alexis Faison, to provide a brief summary and answer any questions you may have. So let me turn it over to Ms. Faison.
Good morning. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
A little louder.
Thank you. I apologize for my setup. I'm in the process of moving houses, so it's been a little chaotic. But I am very happy to be here with you all today. Thank you so much for having me in this meeting. So as Emily mentioned, my name is Alexis Faison, and I am the most recent chairperson for MHEC Student Advisory Council. I have been in that position since September, and throughout the course of these past few months, we've been working on several initiatives, projects, and ideas to enhance the quality of the lives of college students and also people who are pursuing secondary education. So in our final meeting, within the last two meetings, actually, we have worked to develop our final report, which encompasses all recommendations, whether we got to them or not, and focused on providing them to you with context, with recommendations, with suggestions, which can be provided to college presidents to implement. These are used more so as frameworks, more than actual, like, I'll just say demands for lack of a better word. But all of the recommendations have different topics. I believe there was about 6 or 7, maybe less, maybe more. And Dr. Dow, I'm not sure if you have that handy, but if you wouldn't mind screen sharing, I can walk the commission through it and just kind of explain where our mind was at in terms of developing the final report. Thank you. So as you'll see, I'll go over this very briefly because it's a bit lengthy. We had our meeting dates and discussion topics. So this past year, we discussed or considered elections and planning, gun violence and active threats to campus communities, voting, civic engagement, repercussions of the pandemic, food insecurity, and that includes hunger-free campus and SNAP benefits, exploring implementations of initiatives, also understanding the legislative session and how we could potentially have a role in that, also considering non-native English speaking students, and just generally, we kept it pretty consistent to these topics because you can see just by going through this, topics weren't confined to one meeting. So going down, as most of you know, we have proposed the voting and civic engagement recommendation to the commission, which I believe has officially gone through. So we noted that within the final report. And there were also several other topics that were of consideration, but some of them just did not require a recommendation. Some of them just required consideration when speaking to college presidents about what they should be encapsulating on their campuses. So the second one was repercussions of the pandemic. There were 4 different areas that we had considered, whether it was medical and health, economic, social, and academic. So whether or not it's salient, a lot of students are still facing those setbacks from the pandemic, and we put out ways in which can be considered for them to recover, to get back on track, and overall just have a better college experience. So moving on to the third one, which was food insecurity and hunger-free campus and expanding SNAP benefits. So our council recognized that there is already a lot of legislation in motion about this specific topic. Bringing those to light was the most important thing, and whether or not those were passing through committee or whatever legislative bodies, it was important for us to highlight those and bring those out, and also ultimately recommend that to the next council to really hone in on and see by the next legislative session where that was sitting at and how that could be pushed forward further onto college campuses, while also acknowledging that there are a lot of campus communities and organizations that are focused on this and that could potentially be partnered with. Our next one was supporting non-native English speaking students. So once again, this is noting already legislative policy that has been considered or is in place, but also overall, the main focus of this one is being able to accommodate the needs of non-native English speaking students. We recognize that there is additional assistance to be had when it comes to integrating these students better on our campuses and making sure that they actually feel like a part of community. And overall, the goal was, once, like I said, creating a welcoming community and including the importance of having sufficient and efficient language departments and that cross-cultural exchange where it's not transactional and it actually feels like it has purpose. The next one was incarcerated individuals in the Maryland Corrections Enterprise. So ultimately, we did not have time to get to this topic. However, we recommended this for the council of next year. And this included speaking to the Maryland Correctional Enterprises to inform the council on practices regarding employment for individuals who are incarcerated. And from there, we officially had the recommendations listed. And then within the report also was planning for next year. So this was just overall recommendations and things that we noted that we either didn't have the time to get to, or we believed was important to ensure that it was actually part of whatever is discussed for next year's council and making sure that they're prepared with that knowledge. So that's the bane of the final report. And obviously, I'm happy to take any questions, comments, or concerns. And also for next year's council, ensure that they are prepared with what the commission is at mindset wise, or just what they believe would be the best. And I also apologize for my dog. He's going very crazy.
Commissioners, let me just throw it open to you for any either feedback or questions based on the report. And first of all, let me first say, to Alexis as the chair and to your fellow council members, just thank you all for your service and for your time. I know you all are also students, and so taking part to do this, we are deeply appreciative of, and particularly for compiling that final report.
Thank you so much.
So I want to say that, but to my fellow commissioners, if there's any either feedback or questions based on the report or the comments that you heard. None heard. We thank you for the report and many of the Dr. Dow, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I would please finish and then I can chime in.
Excellent. Know that we have all reviewed this document, and many of the considerations that you've put in have also been on our minds too. So you will likely, I imagine, in the months and weeks to come, see some of what you've put in here pop up in some of our thinking and some of our decisions. But thank you so much. Dr. Dow, let me throw it to you.
Great, thank you. This is also an opportunity as commissioners to make recommendations. You can do this at any of your meetings, but certainly today's meeting. If there is a particular topic that you would want the Student Advisory Commission to dive deeper in and give the commission concrete recommendations on what we should be doing, this certainly know that is an open invitation, and certainly today as well. You'll see in the report, as our chair just noted, a variety of to-dos for next year so that they're well set up for next year's council. But if you all as commissioners would like the Student Advisory Council to move in a slightly different direction, that is under your purview, and you can certainly request the Student Advisory Council and the Faculty Advisory Council to do so.
I have two thoughts, but let me just throw it open to the other commissioners if there are any topics that they'd like to put on the table.
Great, and we will have a presentation from our incoming chair for the Faculty Advisory Council. So
yes, I'm also keeping track of that as well. But any topics that my fellow commissioners would add. Dr. Warmack, did you have one?
No, I do not.
Oh, sorry, I thought I saw you come off mute. Sorry. There are two topics that I might put on the table. One is the folks doing in some ways an after action on kind of our FAFSA efforts. We are going to have students who are going to be coming into higher ed next year and learning kind of how that process was for them, particularly with all the changes, would be really helpful. And also all the interventions that we tried, what worked and what didn't. So I guess getting student feedback on how that process was, I think would actually be really helpful, particularly, your first years. The other that I would think about, and it's something that we talked about a little bit in our Education Policy Committee, is to implement a lot of the big things that we are thinking about for Maryland students. If I was in the private sector, we'd call it the customer experience, is really important. The experience of transfer, the experience of doing a new class, but basically just that day-to-day of being a student, and that kind of user research, I think would be really important. So there may be certain processes that we would ask for student feedback on. Talk about what transfer is like for you. Talk about how picking a major is for you. Talk about how career navigation is for you. I think we may ask for just some nitty-gritty customer research questions that I think this council might be well placed to give us feedback on. With that, Ms. Faison, thank you so much. I hope your move goes well. I wish you all the luck in your next steps. And Dr. Dow, sorry.
I was just going to say thank you so much for the opportunity for our council to be part of your meetings, be part of the work that is being done. And I will emphasize that this partnership is very much valued. For the incoming council of next year, if that can continue to be built and strengthened, I think that will really help the direction of their initiatives, their projects, and their goals, and overall just enhancing the work that is being done for higher education students in Maryland. So thank you.
I think we have very much the same wish. Dr. Dow, I'll throw it back to you for our Faculty Advisory Council.
Great, thank you. So just as you've heard from our chair for the Student Advisory Council, I will turn the time over to our incoming chair for the Faculty Advisory Council, Dr. Renita Fenner, also from Loyola. So Loyola gets a little shining light. We have our previous chair for the Student Advisory Council and our incoming chair for the Faculty Advisory Council. Dr. Fenner.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I'm Renita Fenner. I'm Associate Professor of Engineering at Loyola University, Maryland. And today I'm substituting for Dr. Patricia Westerman from Towson University, who served as the chair of the Faculty Advisory Council. And as Emily stated, I am the incoming chair for AY 24-25. You have the report that summarizes our year, and the report provides a summary and recommendations of various crucial topics related to higher education in Maryland. The topics include campus safety, the role of artificial intelligence, student course evaluations, faculty requirements for academic programs, student time outside the classroom, and course equivalency guidance. Each section is an overview of our discussions along with observations and some of our recommendations. So I'll go ahead and open it up to questions if you have any questions of me or things that you would like for me to take back to the council.
Dr. Rai.
Thank you. Thank you for the update, Professor Fenner. Look forward to hearing from you during this coming year. I just wanted to give you an update on campus safety. Governor Moore has provided $25 million for institutions of higher education to put proposals and see where are the gaps in campus safety and how those gaps can be addressed. We have received several proposals, and at the commission, a group is looking at those proposals, and I think grant awards are expected in the next few weeks. So that's an update on that. We are very much interested in learning about impact of AI on student learning and how institutions are providing faculty professional development in how to utilize AI in student learning, and also all the other some positive, not some so positive impact that we are hearing about AI in classrooms. We want to hear more. And in Maryland, we want to be ahead in the nation in providing faculty the best possible guidance on the AI issue. The last one that we would like to hear from your group is stress on faculty. COVID, post-COVID, it's known in the literature, faculty have tremendous pressures on what they do. So we want to hear how that's working out. We are post-COVID now, now a couple of years. How are things improving? And again, what can be done to provide faculty more support in those areas? Again, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
To my fellow commissioners, other either questions or comments that you'd like the chair to take back as we get into the new academic year? Dr. Commissioner Thompson.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Thank you. Ms. Faison, I was wondering regarding the course evaluations. Do you have any examples that we could just look at? Not today, of course, but as you move forward in your with your tenure and new group, if you can include some examples of what those instruments look like. I do agree with the recommendations that you put forth, but I wasn't sure the source, was it particular questions, particular sets of questions that may have led to some of those recommendations that you had. So I don't know if that's something that you can include in the report or not.
We can look to include some examples just in discussion about the use of student course evaluations at different campuses.
Yes.
There's a mix of campuses using their own developed student course evaluations, and then campuses who use, privately developed ones by different businesses and corporations or whatnot. So we will have to look into the ones that are privately developed, and we can certainly ask if the other institutions who are using home developed ones, and would they be willing to provide some sample questions. But in the report, there's a longer report or document within our report about student evaluations. All that is a review of the literature, which takes into account both types. Questions that are used specific by, homegrown, I'll say, developed tools, and then privately developed tools.
I wanted to get a sense of what we were doing in Maryland.
Right.
Which institutions use which types, what's working best, did they make changes? And you spoke about using those opportunities of getting evaluation, not for the sake of just evaluating the person or the class, but for professional development. And as Dr. Rye mentioned, it would be great to know how AI could help with that. But I think it goes back to the source of the instrument too.
Yes.
We need to make sure that we're tapping in on even the institutions having the opportunity to use that data for professional development. So that was the basis of my question. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Dr. Burnham.
Thank you. Good morning, all. Professor Fenner, I wanted to follow up with the question that Dr. Thompson just raised. As I look at the third bullet there, the first part of the report, it says the commission should publish a set of best practices and suggested guidelines. It appears to me that, faculty are the greatest people in the world at doing research. And so I would hope that the Faculty Advisory Council would pull together their research and make some specific recommendations for the commission to consider in terms of policy development and changes that you seek. That's something that we could do, but I think you could do it much better. And I, for one, would certainly appreciate the benefit of your best thinking about the guidelines and the policies that should be put in place that would sort of maximize the benefit that would come from these student evaluations. That was something that I was a strong advocate for over the course of my career in higher education. I believe, just as has been suggested here, that it's a vital component of faculty evaluation, and it can serve many purposes. But I'd like the benefit of the faculty's best thinking about how we should proceed.
We can definitely do that, and I think we are eager to assist. Yes.
Other questions from commissioners? I have maybe one or two thoughts to add, but I want to make sure my fellow commissioners go first. No other hands. Two things, maybe more of a re-emphasis, definitely on the, I agree with all of the comments that have been said. I think on the AI side, this is probably more of a orientation. I think rightfully in the document, you talk a lot about, I think, the guardrails that we want to make sure that we employ as far as using AI, whether it be around academic integrity, around bias and things like that. I think we would also be remiss if we did not think about the flip side, which is what are the advantages in terms of student instruction, in terms of faculty efficiency that we can create by the use of AI. And we would also kind of appreciate your best thinking there. I think as I like to say, we want to capture the promise and mitigate the peril. And so we want to make sure that we do both of those. And I think, again, to what Dr. Burnham said, the faculty thinking, because from your vantage point, would also be really, really useful here. And I know we would definitely take that in. And also, I think, as you said from that we heard, Secretary Rye said, we want to be a leader. We don't just want to be at the mean. We actually want to be pushing the nation for how we use AI to advance the mission. So your best thinking there as you all proceed to the next academic year, I also think would be really helpful. I also think on the question of student evaluations, getting a sense of, as she said, those alternate measures, because I think no one is against evaluation. We just want to make sure that if we're going to reduce the weight that we put on the student evaluation, what's going to take that place, and will it actually answer the questions that we want answered? So again, your best thinking there. Examples that may be in flight around the country would also be helpful. I think Maryland, we are great. I think we do lots of things well, but there might be places around the country that we can learn from that also may have some additional measures and tools. So your thinking there would, I think, very much be welcomed by this commission.
Awesome.
Thank you. Other questions that we may have glossed over or feedback from commissioners? All right, with that, I want to thank both of these chairs and all of your component members for these reports. Trust me, they have been reviewed, they have been read. And if you hear some of your words come out of our mouths later in the year, it's all just best practice. It's not stealing, I swear. With that, let me just go back to our agenda, make sure that we are still on track. I believe next we are going to Jeff Newman. Let me just make sure I have that right. Give me 1 second to scroll back up to the top of the agenda. Yes, we are going to be going to Department of Finance and Administration. Mr. Newman, who will talk to us about financial aid updates, and I expect we'll hear again from the hardest working man in state government, Mr. Dorset.
Yes, you absolutely will, because he's joining me on this presentation with some updates of where we are now. Good morning, Mr. Vice Chair, Commissioners, Secretary Rye, Jeff Newman from the Department of Finance and Administration. Just wanted to rehash a little bit of what's happened with financial aid this year, because we keep talking about it every meeting, and I'm not sure how closely or familiar you are with what has happened this year. I know our esteemed chair is very close to this subject and understands it very well, but we thought we would give you a quick overview of what happened, what caused a lot of these issues, and then we'll give you an update as to where we are today. So this year, the U.S. Department of Education redesigned and streamlined the 24-25 free application for federal student aid, or FAFSA. One of the major revisions was that they reduced the number of questions on the FAFSA from 108 to 36. The launch of this new FAFSA did not go smoothly, to say the least. And the new FAFSA did not become available until late December 2023, as opposed to October 1st, as it had in prior years. Not only that, but the redesign of the FAFSA caused a high level of confusion on what the new FAFSA process would require. MHEC implemented and conducted statewide online trainings for high school counselors, education nonprofit administrators, local education agency administrators, provided 6 presentations around the state for students and families, consisting of an overview on how to complete the FAFSA. But because the FAFSA did not become available until late December 2023, institutional student information records, which are the records we need to process financial aid information on students, did not become available until late March of 2023 instead of on October 15th. So MHEC extended the FAFSA filing deadline from May 1st to June 1st and to May 15th for the priority filing, in order to try to make students, to give them more time and flexibility, and make them have questions answered and try to work through this new process. In addition, MHEC conducted a series of town hall meetings for the nonprofit organizations and other constituents to help assure that students would be awarded in a timely manner. On top of all that, during the initial phase of transmitting ICERs to institutions, the U.S. Department of Education identified that some had calculation errors in institution tax data. MHEC worked with the U.S. Department of Education to identify which ICERs had problems, and we notified students that their ICERs were received, but that they had contained errors and would be reprocessed. We also had to work to create tasks in the MDCAP system, which is our financial aid processing system, to track students with ISA records with errors and update their MDCAPs as soon as the corrected information was available. Now, on top of all of that, we have our internal system, the Maryland Student Aid Processing System, MDCAPs. And we have a few issues with MDCAPs because it is an old system. We are working, and you'll hear from Al, we are working to get a new system. But one of the issues, as actually Chair Mott's experienced, was system speed. As more and more users access MDCAPs, the system processing speed slows down to the point where it becomes very difficult for users to access their information. And also, with respect to recalculations of aid, MDCAPs has to run recalculations on all records, not just the portion that are being updated. So in order to run recalculations on these records, MDCAPs must be taken down to be able to run these calculations. Now, we try to do that overnight, but with a lot of processing going on, it does take more time. This year, MDCAPs was brought down on April 26th to May 3rd and May 20th to May 23rd for recalculations. One of the issues, again, with respect to the new FAFSA, was that the new simplification significantly changes this ISA file layout, the Institutional Student Information Record layout. So we had to work with our vendor on MDCAPs to be able to accommodate the new layout on these files. Then, in addition, the calculation, what we're looking at in the FAFSA changed from expected family contribution, which had been historically been used to look at whether students are eligible for aid or not, to a student aid index. And while the Department of Education provided preliminary guidance for the SAI calculation, they continued to clarify and revise this calculation formula into April. So since the MDCAP system must replicate all these steps in the SAI calculation, we need to do work in MDCAPs to be able to accommodate these changes. And finally, MHEC implemented the MHEC One app, which included a revised Maryland Student Financial Aid Application, or MISA, which is used for eligible non-citizens instead of the FAFSA as the primary application for our need-based programs. And MDCAPs had to be re-architected for the MISA file layout to remain in sync with the ISER file layout for application import purposes. So we had all these things happening. The biggest issue, of course, was the delay that occurred in receiving the FAFSAs from the Department of Education. But then it was sort of a cascading thing with making MDCAPs adjustments, making sure that the new calculations are being performed correctly, and in fact, ensuring that the ISERs that we're receiving were accurate, because there were inconsistencies and inaccuracies in what we received from the feds. So that sort of what's been happening over the last several months this year with financial aid. Now I'll turn it over to Al and tell you where we are now. And Dr. Wright. Like
yes, thank you. Thank you for that update. So basically, to sum it up, there were issues and challenges coming from the Department of Education side. The information that was coming to us was late, it had error, and in some cases it was incomplete. That's number one. Number two, since federal formulas were changing, we had to change formulas on our side, and they could not have been changed in advance. We had to wait for information to come to us. So that's second thing. Third, changing the formulas within our legacy system, MDCAP, it has an architectural issue. It's an old system, and it's designed in a way that all the calculations are done within the database. And you know, people who design these systems, they will tell you that that's not a very efficient way of doing things. Now, that's an architectural issue that cannot be changed. That can only be changed when we have a new system. Second, there was a server capacity issue. And we are very thankful to do it, our colleagues in Do It and our vendor. We reached out to them, can we increase capacity? They use some really good, interesting cloud computing and optimized use of servers and increased capacity that made the system slightly better. Again, I want to thank Al, Jeff, all their colleagues, our colleagues in Do It for helping us out. So we made the best out of all the constraints that were available to us. Al, go ahead with your presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Ryan. Good morning, Dr. Ryan. Good morning, Vice Chair. Good morning, Chair. And good morning, Commissioners. Dr. Ryan, definitely on point in describing, and Mr. Newman as well, in describing the issues. MD caps, we are currently, as a high note, on the kind of final phases of selecting a vendor to develop a new system. So we've gone through proposals. Now, I believe the plan is to have presentations coming. So we are moving forward with that and looking to push it as fast as possible to get this new system, in which we will make sure that calculations are not within the database, but external areas that don't affect the database. But on a good note, as of today, we've received over 145,000 FAFSA student records. Of those records, 129,000 have been completed by May 15th or prior. 11,388 were completed between May 16th and June 1st, and 8,897 were completed after June 1st. So our priority is still awarding students that have completed the FAFSA by May 15th. We are running our award process now due to the system upgrades on Tuesdays and Thursdays, which is allowing us to award more students more efficiently. We are identifying all eligible students, as you'll see in some of the next slides. However, we are making sure that students who completed the FAFSA by May 15th are being awarded first to make sure that we get all of those students. The Department of Education is still providing us with FAFSAs for students that completed their FAFSA prior or by May 15th, as well as they just started releasing paper FAFSAs. So in incidents where students did not complete the FAFSA online, submitted through paper, the department identified a date that they submitted the paper application. Even if they did not process it yet, they identified that date. So as we get FAFSAs in, we are still getting students that completed the FAFSA prior to May 15th. Additionally, one of the other errors that occurred was that even though a student may have completed their section of the FAFSA, unfortunately, their parent was unable to authenticate and get a studentaid.gov username and password. So the parent could not sign the FAFSA or do their portion. The federal government back in probably, I want to say late February, early March, identified that issue and gave a workaround where they told students to still complete the FAFSA. It would be a what we call unofficial FAFSA or error record, but it would have a date. Then once they resolved the solution, individuals would be able to go back in and do their part or do a paper part, either or. So those students, we are still getting their FAFSAs in with a date prior to May 15th. And then there's another group of students, or renewal students, that have received an award for 2 years or more. We are still waiting for institutions to report their spring credits so that we can determine their eligibility based off state law. And we're still waiting on those groups of students. So as much as we're pushing to say, hey, we've got all students that completed their FAFSA by May 15th, now let's move on to the next group of students, we still have more students coming in and are tracking that on a weekly basis, providing a report to Mr. Newman and Dr. Ryan. So as of June 24th, we did award yesterday, but those numbers will only be calculated this morning. We wanted to make sure we had the most accurate or up-to-date numbers we could possibly give you. We've awarded 11,467 students.
Mr. Dorset, quick question. We're not supposed to be, are there supposed to be any slides up? If not, no worries. I just want to make sure.
We did have slides. I'm not sure if they can be shared, but I also
no worries. I just want to make sure we weren't supposed to be seeing something that we were not. I have the prior report. I just want to make sure.
Okay.
Can you put the slides up? Sorry, go ahead, Al.
Well, I can share I have the slide up anyway, so I can share that.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, there we go. Debbie, we're on page 5. So there you'll see we've awarded 11,467 students. This is between the Educational Assistant Grant Renewal, the GA Grant Initials, GA Grant Renewals, Next Generation Scholars, which is a GA grant but a subsidiary kind of, and the NGS Initials and Renewals. So in total, we've awarded $101,278,500. We have 2,230 students where we're still waiting for them to accept the award for a total of $29,300,750. Debbie, if you could move on to the next slide. So as I kind of discussed before, and what we're doing as we award on a weekly basis, we have a eligible report that identifies all students that are eligible to receive the award and are ready to be awarded, which is that top row. As you'll see, with that row, we have a count of 1,311 students in total, with 512 of those students completing the FAFSA by May 15th, 791 of those students completing the FAFSA by June 1st, and 8 students completing the FAFSA post June 1st. What we do is we separate to account for those students first for the May 15th, where you'll see 512 students that have completed their FAFSA in total that were ready to be awarded for a total of $5,139,650. And then those are the students that we move forward with really awarding those students. So that adds on to the 11,000 students that were already awarded. So we keep increasing awards on a weekly basis. As we identify any issues that occur, because the federal government is still identifying issues with the FAFSA, as well as we are still receiving reprocessed FAFSAs from the federal government. They have not provided us with all the FAFSA records for those errors. We continue to catch those students, but the guarantee is to make sure that we've awarded all students that have completed the FAFSA by that May 15th deadline. The date that we're using is the FAFSA submission deadline, which is provided by the Department of Education. So that's the date that we're going forward with. And Debbie, I believe that is the last slide. So from there, I can open up to any questions that anyone may have.
Commissioner's thoughts and questions. I'm not sure if Chair Mott, I know she's going to listen in, but I did want to see if she had any thoughts or questions, because she's our in-house expert here before we throw it open. Chair Mott, do we have you? She will pipe in, but other thoughts and questions based on what you
No,
you want.
sorry. I
No,
don't.
go ahead.
I'm in close contact with Mr. Dorset, and he has answered almost all of my questions very adequately. So I just want to congratulate Al and Catherine and their whole team for navigating a very difficult situation.
Absolutely. And I think one thing that we make very clear, and Jeff, thank you for walking us through the whole sequence of events. This problem was not of Maryland's making. That is very clear, and it is understood by these commissioners. very much know that we understand that and we appreciate so much what you all have done. But again, let me throw it to my fellow commissioners. Thoughts, questions based on what you've heard from Mr. Dorsett and Mr. Newman. Commissioner Bands, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Thank you so much for the overview and the detailed slide deck. This is very helpful to understand the challenges and the issues and the successes that you're having. But I'm curious in terms of if you could compare to last year, and I know we're comparing apples and oranges, but where do you feel we stand right now compared to last year? Because I'm just trying to get a sense of, are we going to see an impact on the fall enrollment based on what you were seeing?
I'm not sure. I mean, you know, a lot of individuals indicate that this will impact their enrollment. However, we're seeing these numbers increase dramatically over weeks and weeks. As we get the data, we're pushing through to award as fast as possible. So, you know, the concerns, the calls are coming in a little bit less. We have more students that are receiving their awards. There's other concerns that are populating out especially for students who complete the paper FAFSA that may be processed after that date. But I don't, in my opinion, from what I see, I don't think that we'll see a dramatic decrease in enrollment. I think it's more so timing in the aspect of when a student will be awarded based off when we receive that FAFSA. As we see, and we're pushing to gather more money from other areas so that we can assist more students. You may get students that are awarded in July, and they're still able to make that decision. You may get students that are awarded in the beginning of August, and they're still able to make that decision. So we do understand the anxiety that goes on because individuals want to know when they want to move forward. And we push to reduce it as much as possible for individuals. You know, we're getting calls, still overwhelming amount of calls on a regular basis, but we do see as we award more individuals, the calls are really reducing more and more. So really the push is really to keep communicating with students, keep resolving issues as fast as possible as they come along, meeting with our systems team, which is our vendor Interclips, on a regular basis to keep on making sure that any issues are fixed, and then really running reports to make sure that we catch all students and being open enough to understand that this is a challenging time. It's not just challenging for us, it's challenging for students. So we have to have an open-mindedness that, you know, based on certain situations, are we able to maneuver to assist a student, or is it a situation where we can't really? And that's really assessing each individual situation that comes along.
Thank you. And again, I commend all that are working so hard to make this possible for students and families to have that comfort level that they can enroll. And I appreciate how concise you were in explaining the complexities of the problem and the work that's going on morning, noon, and night to make this happen. So I really do appreciate this. Thank you.
Thank you. And we appreciate the commission's support, each and every, as well as the rest of the MHEC team.
Chair Motz.
Thanks. Just to add to Mr. Dorsett's comments, I was on the NCAN tracker this morning just to see how Maryland was doing compared to the rest of the state. And just to, you know what, I think I'm gonna have to jump off because my team is talking here, but Maryland is pretty much consistent with the rest of the country. So I will sign off now.
And you know, thinking about enrollment, I've been seeing some information over the last year about enrollment has been increasing. You know, post-pandemic, we saw a 1.4% increase, I believe, in the fall, and then another 2.5% in the spring. So we're hoping it's not going to impact this process of restoring enrollments in higher education that has been occurring since the pandemic. So we'll just keep working to try to get these awards made.
Dr. Rai.
Yes, so thank you for that question, Commissioner Vance. We are in constant touch with institutions of higher education leadership. What we have heard is that this year they have received more applications. That's the good news. What we have also heard that they have admitted more students. That's also good news. The challenge still is that we have to make sure that financial barriers are minimized so these students can show up on the first week of classes. This is where I think we have some work to do. We cannot go on a summer break. You will hear some of the efforts that we are making. Maryland Higher Education Commission, all our nonprofits, and all our institutions of higher education, especially the financial aid offices at those institutions, will continue to work together to make sure that the students who have been admitted, we minimize their financial barriers so they can show up in the classes. So your question, things are looking positive, but we would know this once the classes start. And we are following that very closely. We are doing everything we can to make sure that enrollment trend that was declining for many years, from last year it has started going up, especially we are seeing good increases at community colleges. So we want to make sure that this FAFSA challenges do not change that trend. Thank you.
Other questions? I have two thoughts, but I want to make sure that other folks who have thoughts are able to share. So Jeff, I want to make sure I have the IT timeline correct, just so I have it correct in my head. So RFP is out. You will hopefully award sometime this summer in terms of to a vendor, and then it'll take, I imagine, the next academic year to fully install the system. So really, we are not talking about a system for this next academic year. It's really for the year after. So effectively, we will be on the same MDCAP system for at least the next year. Do I have that timeline correct?
Yes, but not only is the RFP out, but we've already reviewed the proposals. We've evaluated the proposals, the evaluation team, and we are starting oral presentations with the vendors as soon as possible. So we're in the middle of selecting a vendor right now.
Yep.
Commissioner Agu, you are correct. Your timeline is absolutely correct.
Yes.
Next one more year, MDCAP system will be in place, and following year, we'll be able to make a change. Thank you.
Got it. No. So just want to make sure I have that timeline right. Because we basically, and Chair Mott has asked this question, there's potentially another year of, if the feds don't get their act together, that we are doing this. And so I hate to add more work, but I think probably before the fall, getting some type of, call it after action, here are all the things we know we need to do next year, just in case the feds don't get their act together, so that we aren't here again. I think would be really helpful for this commission. And we didn't have crystal balls then. But I want to make sure that we're able to do that. And I think the chair would agree here. I think that's one. I think secondly, and Secretary Rai, you may have already done this, the feds have heard a lot about how bad this has gone. If we're very candid, I actually do think, whether it's formal or informal, we need to make our feedback and our experience here in Maryland clear to the U.S. Department of Education. Like, if it was up to me, we would be visiting. At the very least, I think we need to send a very detailed report. One, because I actually think it'll be factually useful. I also think it's important to make sure that the foot is not taken off the gas, to make sure that what happened this year is not happen next year. And then, Mr. Dorsett, I'll throw it to you because I see a hand up.
No, just to add to that, just recently, the Department of Education reached out to MSDE to meet with them in regards to the FAFSA. But MSDE contacted us, so they have us joining in with them to meet with the department.
Right.
I'm waiting for them to tell us the date of our preliminary meeting with MSDE. And, you know, I'll definitely make sure that Dr. Rye and Mr. Newman have that information as well. But that is already on task.
Excellent.
There, as well as just in the news, I know the Department of Education has hired individuals from College Board to come in to push making sure the FAFSA is up to date and running correctly for the upcoming year. They are looking right now at the FAFSA becoming available October 1st for the 25-26 academic year.
That was the former president of the College Board.
Yeah, so we are also doing a SHIO group, a statewide national group for higher education leaders. We have just completed a survey, and that will reflect each state's experience, and that will be shared with the Department of Education. All that said, we have to be prepared for a similar experience next year. Things get better, hey, we'll be very happy. But you know, folks who have expertise in the IT area, they say that a lot of things that we have done this year, they're patches. You know, the problem came in the implementation, a patch was created. Another problem came, another patch was created. So next year, same thing will be done. Or, you know, is it enough time to completely clean up system, do the architecture again? So there are a lot of questions there. So in Maryland, we have to be ready for a similar experience. If things get better, that's very good. We'll be happy.
Chairman, did you have a thought?
Yeah, just to finish my thought from before, just to set the data context, nationally, FAFSA completions are down 12%, 44% of students have filled them out, and Maryland is right on par with that. 43% of Maryland students have filled them out, 13% down. So as has been stated, this is definitely a national problem, and there's certainly going to be fewer FAFSA, Pell Grant recipients, low-income students attending college this fall, which is a big problem nationally and statewide. But I do think MHEC has done the best that it can do in a tough situation. I did have one question from one of our college advisors here in Baltimore City for Mr. Dorsett. Has the Promise Scholarship been awarded yet?
So the Promise Scholarship is based off going to institutions now. We've given institutions their allocation. We are waiting for funds to come in, and then we will invoice for institutions to receive those funds. So institutions will be awarding Promise this year.
I know it's been delegated to the institutions, right, by law.
Yes.
Do we have a time frame for that?
So once we receive the funds, we've already given them their allocations. So as of hopefully July 1st, we receive the funds, or around that time, then we'll be doing invoices so that the community colleges will receive those funds, those actual funds. But we've already told them their allocation, so institutions can begin awarding as soon as they want to become awarded.
Okay. Another question. I know we're waiting on the colleges to send you who's eligible to receive the guaranteed access grant for next year. And for those who are not returning, that'll free up more funds for you, Mr. Dorsett, to distribute. Do we have a time frame on when we're going to be hearing from those colleges?
So the right now, the plan, and we're still working on that, is by law, we have to provide the colleges with a ranking list for 25-26 of all eligible applicants. So we're working on that. We'll provide that ranking list for them, hopefully by November. And then based off that, those colleges would start awarding those students. We are still working out a plan in which those colleges can possibly do a enrollment roster as a preliminary roster to identify what students actually are attending and will be awarded their institution to see what dollars are available. Because of the removement of or taking away MHEC being the central awarding of those scholarships, the plan we're looking at is it possible to do the ranking list based off the maximum amount of dollars. So the ranking list would go up to all the eligible students that we could possibly meet based off the max amount of dollars that the students can receive. Once a student falls off the ranking list because they are not awarded or they identify they will not be attending, then another student would be added in. Right now, we're looking at that hopefully being a strong solution, or still talking to, different entities on what other possible solutions. But the key will be to provide all institutions a ranking list for them to review based off students selecting, completing the FAFSA and selecting their college.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions before we move to the next part of the agenda? All right, none heard. We'll move to Mr. Coley for his external relations update on the FAFSA outreach grant. Mr. Coley, to you.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair Agu and other commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm going to share my screen. And regarding the FAFSA update, can you all see my screen? Recently, I'm sorry, gosh, slideshow. Recently, the agency was awarded a $500,000 grant to continue the FAFSA outreach and push. Commissioner Agu, Vice Chair, and Commissioner Bands, I hear you loud and clear. Maryland still, as of last year, was ranked about 22nd, 23rd. We're still in the same position this year nationally in terms of our statewide ranking for FAFSA completion. This grant award to our agency from ECMC, the Educational Credit Management Corporation, which is working with the Department of Education to disperse these grant award funds. We are doing a last minute, last mile push for two reasons. One is, of course, to increase FAFSA completion. And second, as you all know, a lot of high school seniors may have gotten caught up in graduating. Last minute issues, last minute concerns between themselves and the families, and also within their high schools. This grant award will also help prevent summer melt or the summer brain drain that we all know. And there may be students who, after receiving their diplomas, are now looking around to say, what more and what else can I do academically? And so we're going to do a last minute push to make sure that our messaging goes a little deeper into the summer. And first and foremost, these funds have to be spent by August 31st. As you all know, a lot of institutions, in particular community colleges, have ongoing admissions, but also a lot of institutions also began mid-August with respect to acceptance and admission as well for some students who may not have completed FAFSA, but may have applied. So this will enable us to do a last-minute push within our agency statewide. And we're looking to partner with community colleges, and we've identified those who have the highest number of students with respect to Pell Grant eligibility. And we are also looking at the FAFSA completion rate for those high schools around Warwick College, Baltimore City, Prince George's, and also there may be a split between two colleges, between Garrett County, Garrett Community College, and also Allegheny in the state of Maryland, regarding those institutions with the largest number of students who are Pell Grant eligible. We've identified those community colleges, and we're going to encourage, through a partnership working with them, for them to ramp up and allow students in their local communities to come in and to complete the FAFSA through those admission offices to, again, looking at moving the needle for FAFSA completion across the state of Maryland, but more importantly, also, if there are issues with respect to digital divide in some of these communities, the local community colleges could be a one-stop shop assisting those students to complete the FAFSA and answering technical questions for them. Again, the funds have to be spent by August 31st. We just received the final agreement with ECMC this week. As a matter of fact, I believe it was Tuesday or Monday, late Monday evening. And so we're moving forward expeditiously to make sure that, one, we begin to encumber the funds from them to reach the agreements with the local community colleges and also local education agencies as well, to kind of market and spread the word regarding outreach, to bring those students in. And again, to be able to go a little deeper in terms of grassroots outreach to make sure we're touching those students in those Pell Grant eligible identified community college areas across the state. And with that, I'll stop there and open the floor if there are any questions.
Dr. Thompson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Coley. Could you elaborate a bit on the movement toward combating the summer melt? I'm not quite clear what is happening there and how do you define exactly what's going to happen with this grant or grant award or the process? That's the first question.
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Thompson, that's a very good question. And like, again, sometimes the messaging gets lost and drowned out. As students, we all know, we can remember when we were teenagers, their emotions of leaving high school, friends splitting up over the summer, some friends going to college, family issues. There may be family issues within households, and the FAFSA completion message may have been lost. Our effort during this summer at the agency is to double down and to redirect our messaging. And as Dr. Rye, Secretary Rye said, there is no summer off in a sense. We're going to keep pushing this message through the community colleges and other marketing arms to make sure that we bring the focus back in terms of those students who, for whatever reason, may not have heard us loud and clear during the last 3 to 4 months of their high school journey. And again, this is something that a lot of educators are very much aware of, where students kind of fall back into a recreational mode, Commissioner Thompson, and really a lot of students aren't aware that even if they aren't going to a traditional four-year institution, and there are opportunities at the community college, in particular for some of our other financial aid instruments here at the agency that also require FAFSA that are workforce focused. So while we, welcome, engineering and, medical sciences and other types of majors for degree completion, there are a lot of workforce needs across the state of Maryland as well. And a lot of our financial scholarships and grants require FAFSA completion. And students and families may not be aware of that, Commissioner Thompson. So we want to double down. Yes.
Okay, so you mean double down on the messaging of how urgent
yes, ma'am.
it is. That's what you mean by summer melt. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
Okay. And you mentioned also that you're focusing on those students who would be or were Pell Grant recipients.
Yes, ma'am. Our agency has data, and we're looking at those community colleges that are about 35 to 46% of the student population enrollment are Pell Grant eligible recipients. Again, as we all know, this is a population that is socioeconomically challenged, and we want to make sure that we provide an avenue for them to come into the local community colleges to at least begin exploring what else they're eligible for with respect to the FAFSA completion. They may not know at all that they are in fact eligible for certain funds. And once they get the award notice from the FAFSA completion, it may energize them and incentivize them to actually continue a little further, to actually enroll and begin taking some classes.
We look forward to the results of that. Now, you don't have a whole lot of money, but what you do have will certainly help. And hopefully there'll be some recommendations that can even be carried on beyond the community college level with some of the great recommendations that should come out of this.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Commissioner Thompson.
Chair Motz.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Coley, and congratulations on winning that grant. That's fantastic news.
Thank you.
I just wanted to understand a little bit more about the mechanics of it. So you basically got 2 months to spend $500,000. Are you mostly spending it on a marketing campaign for students to apply for the FAFSA to go to community college? Or will the money go towards marketing? Will it go towards paying people to help students fill out the FAFSA? I'm just wondering exactly where the money's going to go.
Yes, ma'am. C, all of the above, Chair Motz. There were a list of criteria that were eligibility points with respect to the grant. And to your point, one, it is for marketing and outreach, but also for pay for those staff people who were at the community college level, who were putting in additional time above and beyond. And also, we anticipate possibly evening work as well, since some of the families and students may be working jobs in the daytime, and they can come in the evening to complete the FAFSA as well. So we will provide the guideline qualifications to the community colleges with respect to spending criteria, and then we will also provide guidance with respect to what we expect through an MOU between the agency and each community college as well, Chair Motz.
That's great. And on the marketing end, will we be seeing ads on buses and bus shelters? Is MHEC running the marketing piece, or is that going to each community college?
We will probably run the marketing piece with an overarching outreach strategy. I will say that there may be a few ads as it relates to radio. As Commissioner Thompson just pointed out, we don't have a lot of money, but we do have some money. And again, we want to stretch the dollars as far as we can go with respect to marketing and outreach. So there may be some radio ads in urban radio and also in rural radio that may be very affordable with respect to 30-second spots. Again, reminding students and families to complete the FAFSA and that there's still time, and create this sense of urgency, but also the buzz where folks may think it's over. And in fact, it's not over, because the FAFSA federally is not deadline until September of this year. So we still have some time, even after the August 31st deadline, to spend the funds.
Great, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Rai.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Raghu. Thank you, Derek, for a wonderful presentation. And I also want to thank Derek that when this opportunity came, Department of Education announced that they are providing $50 million to ECMC to administer this grant. So we had a very, tight turnaround time for this grant, and Derek wonderfully led that. And we initially asked for $1 million, and we didn't receive $1 million. We received only $500,000. Well, not only, still $500,000 is a good amount of money. So with that money, we decided to do a targeted effort. Where are the lowest FAFSA completion? Which school districts have lowest FAFSA completion? Which community colleges have one of the highest Pell Grant recipients? So connecting them together and using community colleges' expertise there, and providing them funding to bring students on their campus, staff time or additional staff overtime, and helping them complete FAFSA. Community colleges are open access institutions admitting those students, and community colleges have promised scholarships that's going $15 million that can be used for credit programs and also towards non-credit programs. So looking at that, and our goal is in the grant we said, Mr. Kohli, you can correct me, 6,000 students, but we will be aiming for 10,000 completion in the state of Maryland through this particular effort. And Commissioner Thompson, once this is done, we will come back and see what worked, what doesn't work, and we'll have some better ideas how to do this next year. Thank you again.
Maybe just two thoughts that I might add. One, again, thank you, Mr. Kohli, as well as your whole team for helping to get this grant. These grants are not easy, and $500 million is on the much bigger side in terms of philanthropy. Couple of things that I might say. One, you don't have a lot of time, which is not your fault. So I would say, getting the money and the guidelines in the hands of the institutions as quickly as possible, I think is going to be critical. This is me speaking, this is Chike speaking. I would not make the perfect the enemy of the good, in the sense of, let's be clear about what we're looking for. Let's be clear about how we'll measure, but we could create with another month perfect guidelines, and we would end up with less kids in. So that's just one bit of advice. I'd say secondly, if we are successful, I would not rule it out that we could get additional funds to do a second year of this. To join this to our last discussion, we expect we'll still have some hiccups next year, and we may need to repeat some of these activities. I think it would not be out of the question to try and go back to ECMC to say, is there another $500,000 of support to support us as we go into this next year where we know it's not going to be perfect. I know some of the people there, and I should imagine some people on this call might too. I think thirdly, this is actually my question. In terms of measurement, are we purely going to just going to look at how many kids were signed up through these efforts, or are there additional metrics that we are going to use?
Yes, sir. We're going to, Vice Chair, we're going to look at purely the numbers of students who walk in and complete the FAFSA through our community college partners and so forth. That's the metric that we put in the actual grant application. While there may be some movement across the state overall, we're capturing that information through the partners and asking them to maintain those records and metrics.
Great, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Other thoughts or questions before we go to the next piece of the agenda? All right, with that, Mr. Coley, thank you so much for the work, for the continued work, and just please keep us abreast along the way, and also let us know how we can be helpful if we can be as commissioners or as staff.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Yes, sir. Most definitely.
Excellent. Dr. Dow, back to you on HB 1244.
Great, thank you. And hello again, commissioners. Let me share my screen. I do have a few slides for you. I am hopeful I can keep this presentation short, but there is a lot in here to break open. So I am here to provide you an update on where we are in implementing House Bill 1244 from this past legislative session. This bill is to take effect on July 1st, and we have spent the past 2 months working through a plan to implement the bill. And in fact, we've already begun implementing a few of the requirements ahead of time. I won't read out this list, but the bill changes a number of initiatives and adds in new initiatives that we need to do. And so I'm going to go through each of these with a bit more detail in a couple more slides. Under Secretary Rye's leadership, it's really important that our agency is very transparent in our decision making. We are trying to be intentional in making sure that we provide updates to a number of advisory councils through public meetings. We are working to make sure we have information posted to our website so that the public can access updates as we make progress. So this is a primary principle as we move forward in implementation. We've also, again, Secretary Rye has made sure that a priority is developing clearly defined processes and standards, and really getting into the details around definitions, what's to be expected, and specific timelines. We also are working to ensure that our community partners are included in the development of these changes and as we implement. So not just thinking about our segment leaders, but our college leadership on the campuses, as well as other important community partners like Department of Labor, Department of Commerce, Maryland Longitudinal Data System Center, thinking very broadly about the impact of these academic program review changes and what that means for the greater Maryland economy. And of course, we want to make sure that our implementation is aligned with the governor and legislative priorities and keeping that upfront as we think through these changes. We keep getting asked the question, so how will the review process change? So let me go through a couple of these to let you know. We're going to have a universal source for statewide workforce need and emerging fields. That has been, that universal source doesn't really exist for the state. We have information from Department of Labor, we have information from Department of Commerce, we have scholarly articles, we have national statistics. With these changes, we will now have a universal source of what we mean by statewide workforce needs and emerging fields. We will also have a preview of potential new graduate programs so we can provide early warning signs of duplication and encourage collaboration. We will have clear standards for the analysis of unreasonable duplication and unnecessary duplication, and I'll explain the distinction again in a few slides. We're going to have a revised review meeting process. We're going to have a new definition for substantial modification. We're going to have clear institutional distinction through updated mission statements. We're going to have a program review process advisory committee. We're going to have a review process for fully online programs. And we're also going to have the opportunity to evaluate harm should duplication be allowed. And finally, a public-facing administrative procedures guide. So this is a summary of how the review process will change for academic programs. As part of these changes, there are going to be a number of regulatory updates. And so what you see on the slide is a rough outline of when to expect those regulatory changes. So we are anxious to get you changes to the review meeting in August. We're also going to make changes to, again, this definition for substantial modification, the analysis for unreasonable duplication, unnecessary duplication, and the format and process for letters of intent. It is our expectation that as commissioners, you will see initial versions of those regulations for approval and for publication and public comment at the September meeting. We're also going to work on regulations for a separate process for fully online programs offered to out-of-state students, and some additional process changes throughout the fall. Final adoption of these regulations as it goes through the AALR process, we expect as early as December into January and February, depending on when the process goes through. So put this on your radar that regulatory changes are forthcoming. Let me dive into those 9 big initiatives that we will be. Oh, sure, yeah.
Could you just go back to that timeline?
Absolutely.
So just one quick question, and I'll let you go on. So we have a bunch of regulatory changes that are going to happen in our September meeting. Is that the same meeting as our budget meeting?
It is, which is part of the reason why we wanted to alert you to this. Yeah.
Okay. So we may want to just talk about how we even create even more time for that. Because I remember that meeting last year, and that meeting itself was 7 hours, and it may need to be even long. Let's talk about how we accommodate all that and do it all justice. I just wanted to make sure I flagged that. Absolutely. But I'll let you go on. Thank you.
If we can, you have a commitment from me. If we can move some of these regulations up sooner, we absolutely will. So if there's the potential of if we feel comfortable that we have some regulations ready for the August meeting, we absolutely will put it on the August agenda. So this is kind of last expectation to move regulations forward.
Thank you. Feel free to proceed.
Thank you. I'm happy to answer additional questions as I go through this. I may not be able to see the hand raising. Okay, so let me run through those 9 big changes that House Bill 1244 puts forward. First, we have our statewide workforce needs and emerging fields. House Bill 1244 made a number of changes to the state plan for higher education. Specifically, what should be included in the plan. And you'll see from the red text on this slide, new language that indicates that the higher education state plan must include information on current and emerging workforce needs and academic programs to fulfill those needs. For shorthand, we're going to call this the workforce needs analysis, but it does include this idea of emerging fields at the state and regional level, as well as relevant academic programs. But our shorthand for now will be workforce needs analysis. The commission is also expected to update the workforce needs analysis annually as an appendix to the plan. So MHEC, Labor, and Commerce are expected to work together to develop this analysis. And the Legislative Policy Committee, which is chaired by the Senate President and the House Speaker, are expected to review the analysis before adoption. This first appendix is due January 1st, 2025, And we've already made some headway in working with Commerce and Labor in developing some initial lists. You'll see here that the legislature provided specific details on what should go into the workforce needs analysis. In some, ensuring that there's uniform and consistent both baseline and general data that is accessible to all institutions of higher education, and that we do this work in consultation with other state agencies and segment heads.
So this is a very important part, because often academic programs will be presented and one institution will say that there is a strong need for nurses in the state of Maryland. And another institution may find several data sources showing that there is a surplus of nurses. So we don't want us to be in the middle of making that decision, which one is true, right? So therefore, what comes out of Commerce, Labor, and through us, and what is approved by the Assembly, I think we will go on that. We will not be referring that conversation.
So let me just ask a question. So basically, we can communicate to any institution, if your workforce data does not align to what is in the workforce needs analysis, the workforce needs analysis wins.
Yes and no. This is where the transparency and making sure that our community partners are engaged from the get-go, so that they will see these lists ahead of time before it goes to the commission for adoption. And they can provide comment and feedback and say, wait a minute, we're concerned about this workforce need, or we actually think there's a need over here. And we can take that into consideration. So they will have an opportunity to weigh in absent a specific proposal in front of them. Once we have a proposal, yes, this list will be the truth.
Agreed. Let me make one caveat, not one caveat, but let me point, which is the folks will try and, how I say, the incentives will dictate, the institutions will try and make sure that this workforce analysis includes things that they want to do, which I understand. It will be impossible for this workforce needs analysis to satisfy every institution. That is not going to be possible. In the end, we will likely make choices, and I do not expect unanimity. I don't think that's possible here. We should be okay with that. We should expect that. But no, that's super helpful. So when we are in those meetings and we see all this conflicting data, we're going to say, but the needs analysis says this. Therefore, that's where we're going to go. And so that is an important expectation to put forward to institutions when they come in, because for the one or two that I've been in, that's where we spend half the time arguing. And so anyway, Dr. Dow, I just wanted to say that out loud so that our fellow commissioners, as well as folks who may be listening, are aware of that. But Dr. Dow, back to you.
Great, thank you. And thank you for that clarification and insight. That's helpful for us to do this work. So the final product is going to be this appendix to the higher education state plan. It will have 4 sections. The first 2 sections deal with workforce needs, and the last 2 sections will deal with emerging fields. And so we'll talk about emerging fields in just a minute. The first section will identify the state and regional workforce needs, and the second section will list the academic programs that would address that need, both expanding existing academic programs or revising existing academic programs, as well as identifying new academic programs that are needed. So we'll be sensitive to that list of academic programs that moving forward that would meet that workforce need. The third and fourth section, just as I said, would focus on emerging workforce needs. So we'll need to distinguish between current workforce needs and emerging workforce needs. House Bill 1244 provides a very specific definition of emerging workforce need programs. They are graduate level programs not currently offered in Maryland. They address a job or industry need that is innovative, unique, and rare. The program could leverage federal, state, or private resources. And this is where we divide. An emerging workforce need program does not mean a specific academic program that fulfills or supports a current state and regional workforce need. So those two types of academic programs are mutually exclusive. That's where we are on the workforce needs analysis. Like I said, we have already begun conversations with Labor and Commerce to identify their existing lists, their priorities. We're leaning heavily on Department of Labor's WIOA plan that goes to the federal government. In that WIOA plan, they identify emerging industries of high demand, industries of need, specific occupations. So that'll be a good foundational resource for us. And Commerce similarly identifies key industries, key sectors that are important to the state economically, and they too are working this summer to update that list. So we will be engaging with them regularly, and you'll continue to get updates on this in future commission meetings. I'll move on to the second item, revisions to the definition of substantial modification. We have formed a work group to do this work. The work group has met about 4 times. This includes segmental representatives from a variety of campuses. We're likely to have 2 or 3 more meetings. New regulations must be adopted on or before January 1st. So we are backing this out to make sure at the September commission meeting you have that initial approval for publication. It is my intent that you would get preview of those changes at the July and August meeting. So it's not a surprise to you all, and you all can provide us feedback at the July and August meeting. So by the time we get to initial approval, we can incorporate all of that. Just as a summary, you can see the current definition of substantial modification on the left-hand side of the screen. We have a number of elements under consideration for revision or inclusion into the definition. So, for example, increasing the threshold to a 50% change of coursework, accounting for changes motivated by an external authority like an accreditor or licensing board. So these are the kind of elements that are currently under discussion with the work group. Let me move on to item number 3, the standards for the analysis of unreasonable duplication and unnecessary duplication. House Bill 1244 makes changes to unreasonable duplication and unnecessary duplication, and you can see on the slide the relevant edits to each. The new language removes the term demonstrable and edits the language to change harm from another institution to the state or students when we talk about unreasonable program duplication. Similarly, unnecessary duplication is clarified to indicate duplication that violates the state's equal education opportunity obligations under state and federal law. So some standards currently under consideration for unreasonable duplication, degree level, program learning objectives, including specific competency, skills, and employment potential, curriculum, including course analysis, program title, zip code. These are all elements that we currently use when we evaluate duplication. The expectation is we are going to clarify these elements with regulatory changes and make it crystal clear what those standards are so everybody has clarity on that. Unnecessary duplication, because it's specific to federal law, those standards are being developed in conjunction with the AAG. And really all of these standards are being developed in conjunction with the AAG, but specifically this unnecessary duplication. So that is where we are on duplication analysis. Mission statement and review, number 4. We're on 4 of 9 specific changes. Mission statement is the next one. House Bill 1244 adds new language regarding the expectation for mission statement review. Mission statement review is only for public institutions, and the new language requires the commission to 1, develop detailed criteria for that review, and 2, ensure that each institution has a clear distinction from other public institutions. Once we complete the mission review, we are expected to submit a report to the General Assembly that details the analysis for the review and explains how public institutions are distinct from one another and how that is demonstrated in their mission. Let me give you a little bit of timeline of what we're thinking for the mission statement review. We're looking to share proposed criteria with the Segmental Advisory Council no later than the September meeting for review and feedback. And we're going to ideally prepare relevant materials for release after the workforce needs analysis, this January 1, after that's completed and the appendix to the higher education state plan is adopted. So we're looking at this probably, we're going to be working on it through the fall, but we really won't start the mission review probably till next summer because institutions will need to be given time to revise their mission statement in light of all of these changes and submit that mission statement for the agency to review. We are expected to establish a program review process advisory committee. We expect to have this first meeting no later than September 30th. This advisory committee would review process matters. They will not provide opinions or recommendations on individual or specific proposals. And we need to, our next steps is just determining the composition of committee members. Again, making sure that we have the right stakeholders and it's a representative group of partners. And something that you all will be seeing are specific bylaws for this advisory committee. So more to come on that front.
Dr. Dow, quick question. Yeah. Can you just be clear on process matters? What exactly does that mean?
Sure. So as we develop new regulations to ensure that we have reviewed it, community partners have had a chance to weigh in, we will funnel those regulatory changes through this advisory committee. So that when we bring you those regulatory changes, we can provide commentary on how the advisory committee feels about those regulatory changes, proposed regulatory changes. So that's what we mean about process matters.
And I assume this probably was left on the cutting room floor, but I can remember a year ago we talked about, for example, does having a group of disinterested experts, potentially from out of state, to look at proposals, does that make sense? Because if you're in Maryland, you have a dog in the fight. I assume that didn't make it off the cutting room floor.
We are still going to implement that, but it is not required by the bill. Okay. So sure. We're gonna do that. We have that in.
Dr. Dow, did we lose you for a second?
Question.
You froze for about 15 seconds.
Okay, I'll repeat myself. Sorry about that. We are going to implement that. It is not required by House Bill 1244, but we are going to implement that procedurally as a tool to use when we are reviewing individual proposals.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. 6, develop a process for fully online programs. House Bill 1244 adds statutory language that would create a program review process for new proposed programs that, 1, are offered only online. And let me just stop there. When we say only online, we are likely going to take that a very conservative approach and really interpret that to mean a student never has to set foot in Maryland. They never have to set foot on a campus to complete the program. That includes registration, advising, testing. So truly, truly online, fully online program. So we need to create a new process for programs that are offered only online and to a majority of out-of-state students, and enable the institutions of higher education in the state to compete with out-of-state competitors in the online marketplace. So a new process, this is Commissioner Agu, to your question, this new process will be discussed and reviewed and recommended through that program review process advisory committee. So that is where we will make sure we have all of our community partners have an opportunity to weigh in on what that process looks like. So more to come on this front. This is on the docket probably for late summer, early fall, and for you all to see regulations before the end of 2024. Almost done. We've got 3 more to go. So letters of intent for graduate programs. Before moving on to the next slide, let me give you a bit of background on this. As you all know, by the time a proposal has made its way to MHEC, it's gone through significant development at the campus, going through departmental reviews, likely through a faculty governance, and sometimes through board approval, depending on the nature of the proposal. And so a lot of work has been put into these proposals, and there's an expectation that the institution will move forward with that new program. However, as you all know, there's a chance that the program may be denied by MHEC. So it would be great if the agency could get a preview of potential programs under consideration at the campus level so that we can better encourage collaboration, we can provide those early warning signs of potential duplication, and communicate any other relevant information before the campus really dives into developing that academic program. So to do that, the legislature added a letter of intent process for graduate programs, and that's what this process is to do. Letters of intent will be required for new graduate programs to be submitted on a 6-month cycle and circulated to other institutions of higher education. The commission shall use a letter of intent submitted by an institution to, again, facilitate collaboration and to provide feedback before the institution submits the new program to the commission for approval, including concerns regarding unreasonable and unnecessary duplication. This is another new process that's going to be discussed, reviewed, and recommended through the Program Review Process Advisory Committee. So again, Commissioner Agu is a good example of what that advisory committee will be weighing in on.
Dr. Thompson, question.
Thank you. Dr. Dowd, when you say every 6 months, do you mean twice a year you would ask for this information?
Exactly.
All
Yep.
right. All right. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. So close. Just a couple more sections. We are going to be expected to evaluate harm if and when duplication of an existing program at an HBCU is allowed after an objection is received. So we are going to start this work this fall, start creating that template for this report. It will go to the General Assembly, and the first report is due September 1st, 2025. So as we develop this analysis, we'll probably give you updates on this in late winter, early spring, as we prepare for that first September 1st, 2025 report.
Dr. Dowd, let me just make sure I understand this. So this is a report almost backward looking. So a program was already approved that an HBCU objected to. And basically, this report is to see if harm actually happened.
Exactly. Yep.
Thank you.
So the trick here, or the challenge, or the to-do that we have, is to really refine what we mean by harm and talk with the HBCUs and have open. I think this is going to be far more of a qualitative analysis than a quantitative analysis and thinking through that harm. So that's where I think the work is going to lie here. And it will definitely vary by proposal.
Dr. Thompson.
Yes, regarding that then, would it require that students who may have completed a particular program, graduated, moved on, that they are also contacted for their input?
I imagine we would absolutely do that to the extent we have capacity. Getting students' opinion, experiences, better understand their decision-making processes, absolutely. That makes complete sense.
And likewise, there may be students who transferred as a result of it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Noted. Thank you, Commissioner Thompson, for that. Okay. Last, as the requirement for House Bill 1244 is creating this administrative procedures guide. We have already developed a draft of this guide. I would like to give a shout out to Lindsay Silva and her team for drafting the guide. It's currently under review, and we expect to release the first version this summer. However, with all of these changes, we are going to have to regularly update this guide. So we will update it live as these changes become official and new processes and new expectations are finalized. But a first version will be released this summer. Finally, let me just highlight some of those other processes that are not required by House Bill 1244, but we will continue to implement. So again, revisions to the review meeting process and procedures. There are some changes that the bill makes around making sure institutions have equal and enough time to present their arguments. So we're going to make revisions to the review meeting process that go above and beyond those changes. We also expect Commissioner Agu, as you noted, to consult with key experts and faculty on program duplication when appropriate, and we're going to include that as an explicit element of these new processes. And last, under Secretary Rai's leadership, he has absolutely prioritized encouraging, expanding, requiring collaboration. So thinking through these ad hoc collaborative meetings hosted by MHEC with targeted institutions to speak about specific programs. So that is forthcoming and will take MHEC into a more leadership role when it comes to academic program development. So with that, I will stop and happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Commissioners' thoughts. First of all, thank you for the presentation, Dr. Dye. I know it's a lot to get through, but other thoughts or questions from fellow commissioners? Or feedback?
I have a question, Mr. Vice Chair. Concerning the last point, can you put that slide back up, please?
Sure. Technology willing.
The ad hoc collaborative meetings. I'd like for you to say more about that. Is this something that MHEC would call for after a new program has been proposed, or is this something that would be done in the regular course of business? Or say more about when these meetings would be used.
Sure. Let me defer to Secretary Rai in case he wants to answer that, but I'm also happy to answer it myself. Secretary Rai, do you want to, or do you want me to take it?
Yes, so sure. Great question. We are still working. The idea is to create more collaboration among institutions of higher education. First opportunity will be when the letter of intent comes forward. So if several institutions are interested in proposing programs in some emerging areas, bringing them together to make sure that they're collaborating, and maybe in their emerging areas, there could be programs with different focus. So as a state, we have a comprehensive academic programs for the entire area, but we work together. So one institution has expertise in this area, and they're developing academic program within that sub area. Others are doing in this other area. I think that is an important thing to avoid unnecessary, heated competition in those areas. We want to be proactive in doing that work, and I think this will be very helpful for the entire process.
Thank you.
Other questions, thoughts?
So let me add one thing that, we are all aware that this academic program issue has been a complex issue for the agency, not just last 1 year, but for more than a decade or so. This bill certainly helps us to address some of those issues. As you see from the presentation, we are going above and beyond what bill actually requires. So a lot of work has to be done just to address all the issues that are within the bill. Collaboration with several other agencies. And then there are definite timelines. There are some number of things that needs to be done by July 1. Then there are things that must be done by September 30th or so. Then there are things that must be done by December 31st. So there's tremendous amount of work that has been generated here. And I want to thank Dr. Dow, Lindsay, and Trish, and others in Academic Affairs Unit for really stepping up and not just doing the minimum required by the law, but they have been very thorough in addressing these issues. I really commend them for this work.
Let me echo that, and I think echo that on behalf of my fellow commissioners. Thank you for your work. Let me just say three things. I think if I go back to the 2 or 3 meetings that I was a part of around these issues, I think the biggest questions I think that we have are, how do you define need, which is really where the workforce and the economic question and the appendix hopefully will help us. How do you define harm? And I think getting clarity on that will be really helpful. And then, which is already part of this process. And then lastly, this is more of a process thing, we want to make sure that we move MHEC from an actor to kind of an arbiter in the process. Again, to the extent where you all are truly a referee versus at times an actor, that's better for everyone, because number one, is what you all are built for. And so I think as we think about that, how do we make sure that you all can serve much more of that process versus at times having to be an actor? Because that's, I think, not necessarily the best use of your time, and also I don't think it gets us to a good product. So I think everything moves us this way, and I do want to thank you all for the work, and let us know how we can be helpful in this process, because we do know that it's a lot. And anything else from you, Dr. Dow?
No, thank you. We will continue to provide updates at future commission meetings as a way to keep this public, keep this transparent, keep you all informed of how we're working with other advisory councils and community partners to move this work forward.
Oh, Dr. Dow, one quick question, and this is not urgent. It would actually be helpful, really in this process or a few others, even if it's a bulleted list of just some of these other advisory bodies. There are a lot. We see them all, I think, in bits and starts. But I know for me, I like seeing org charts. Just knowing what some of these other groups are, and it is not urgent by any means, that would be helpful, just so we can keep it straight, at least straight in my own mind. And it might be helpful for a few other commissioners as well. But beyond that, we have one last agenda item, which is, I think it's also with you, Dr. Dow, proposed topics for upcoming meetings.
Absolutely. So in light of your earlier comment, we thought it might be helpful to highlight some of the items that you will be seeing in the next 3 meetings for you all to be situationally aware and just put this all on your radar. So at the July meeting, I'm certainly providing a in-depth update on post-2025 goals, where we are in collaboration with the Education Policy Committee. You'll get an update on substantial modification changes and an update on the creation of that program review process advisory committee, so that you all can weigh in. At the August meeting, we'll present an initial draft of that proposed appendix, that workforce need analysis, for the commission to kind of approve for public circulation, to say, okay, campuses, here's an initial draft. What do you all think of it? So it's really just an initial draft. We're going to give you another update on substantial modification changes, an update on the mission statement review criteria, and you'll also, at the August meeting, you're going to get the 6-month reports from Academic Affairs. Those reports include recent academic program proposals that have been approved by Secretary Rye. So that'll be helpful contextual information of the work that not just academic program review, but all of our academic affairs teams are doing around approvals. And then finally, at the September meeting, that big budget meeting is, of course, the budget presentations, and then these new regulations, substantial modification, unreasonable, unnecessary, and letters of intent. And we'll also give you another update on mission statement review criteria.
Quick question, this is a process question. I'm looking at, again, first of all, this is a lot. And again, I think I remember doing all of this last year and having no idea exactly what all of this was. So I feel a little more prepared now. I think it's a couple of process things. One, as far beforehand as we can have budget items before the September 18th meeting, that will be tremendously helpful. Same thing on the reg changes. If the reg changes need to be on that 18th meeting, as much time as we can get beforehand, so that when we can arrive, we as commissioners will commit to being fully briefed. so that we can dive into thoughts, questions, things like that. I know that will be really helpful. Going to the July 24th meeting on post 2025 goals, which of course we will keep very tight with the plan. Will we hear from HCM strategies, or will this be more like the discussion that we did at the Education Policy Committee, where you'll present the broad buckets, we'll take feedback?
I leave that up to you, Commissioner Agu. Certainly, we can have HCM strategists and others present to the full commission, or they can present to the Ed Policy Committee, and then the Ed Policy Committee can report out. Whatever your preference, we can make happen.
It depends on how ready the goals are. So if the goals are ready where they're draft, I would prefer, because my understanding of the timeline was that the post 2025 goals will be ready roughly at the end of August.
Right. Yes.
So
yeah,
it's
that is.
Yes.
I think that's a good thing. July is still high level. In August, we'll have a draft plan. As you know, we have 3 major areas.
Yep.
Within those major areas, we are working with our collaborators to further refine, define, and also come up with the baseline data and benchmark. So August, a better draft plan will be there. And I would think that we will certainly make a presentation to the entire commission, but HCM strategies should be there for our August meeting. And, we may have some other collaborators by then who will probably help us implement the plan and further refine the plan. So we may have an opportunity by then to bring them as well. And these topics we are giving you advance notice because a lot of work is being done, and some of these things will be coming. But these are not the only things. Like July meeting will probably have more than these 3 items, but these 3 are significant items. They will be there in addition to some other things that might come up between now and July.
Let me just on that say to my fellow commissioners, I encourage you, if you have time, watch the meeting, watch the recording of the Education Policy Committee meeting that we had last week, where we actually did get a bit of a preview of that discussion. Commissioner Williams, Commissioner Tabor-Stalen were able to give great comments. In our next meeting, which will likely happen the week before this, we'll have some comments from Dr. Dukes as well as from Commissioner Serrano. But I imagine you'll get basically a very similar version of what we got, and hearing some of those comments from your fellow commissioners may be helpful just to kind of get you up to speed. I had one other comment, but that has left me, and I'll remember it before the end. Other Dr. Dow thoughts or questions? And again, there's a lot here, and so I'm just trying to think through from a process to make sure that we can give it all its due and make sure that these fellow commissioners are fully briefed, so as much in advance as possible. And we will try to order these agendas so that they are manageable and also rigorous.
Noted, and we will work towards that goal. Absolutely, give you all plenty of notice and time to consider these changes.
All right. With that, unless Dr. Dow, you have anything else, I believe we are at times the favorite part of the meeting, which is adjournment. Do I have, unless there's something else that the folks want on the table, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn with a huge thank you to our vice chair for leading this meeting.
I need a second.
On both scores.
All right.
You may have yourself a new job.
No, I do not. No, I do not. We will look forward to seeing you in July, ma'am. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Really, Commissioner Robinson, we are sad to see you go. We really will wish you luck. And to my fellow commissioners as well as the Secretary and the MHEC staff, we look forward to seeing you soon. Have a great day and a great rest of the month, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye all.